Hello there, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another German GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. So, in this particular tutorial, we are going to look at a quite specific part of the German GCSE and iGCSE listening exam, which is new and which is there only for a few exam boards as of 2026 onwards, which is the dictation task. So, yeah, many students and parents alike are quite concerned about this because it's new. Yeah, there isn't as much sample material available for the dictation tasks, yeah, as there is for perhaps other parts of the papers, although there are practice questions certainly to be found out there. And so I'm going to break down the dictation task, what it consists of, who it's for, so who has to do this, how best to prepare, and give you a few examples as well. Firstly, just wanted to introduce myself quickly. So I'm Dhananjay Talwar. I studied modern languages, French and Italian, namely at the University of Cambridge, and I graduated from there back in 2015. I've been an educator since that time, really, mostly as a full-time tutor, which I've been doing for more than 6 years now. I'm really passionate about languages and language learning. I love motivating my students to learn languages, encouraging people generally to find out more about other cultures and access cultures, literature, etc., through language. And I've learned over 20 languages myself to different levels, 9 of those at least to fluency. So, yeah, definitely something of a hobby of mine and something that I really enjoy doing. And I do also enjoy really helping my students and helping them to reach their language learning goals, giving them the techniques to enable them to do so. Yeah, and those language learning goals often are for exams like GCSEs or iGCSEs. So far, I've actually helped more than 500 different students to achieve or even exceed their target grade in GCSEs or iGCSEs for various languages as a full-time tutor. I've taught 8 languages so far, including German, of course, up to GCSE level, and some of those at higher levels as well. And it's been, yeah, a great experience. These are quickly the German GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. So 4 of them for GCSE German and 2 for iGCSE German. You should recognize your own exam board here. And this is very relevant when you're preparing for your exams too, because there are differences from exam board to exam board. Indeed, not every exam board will do this dictation task, which is the subject of this tutorial video. The dictation task is new. That's why many parents who contacted me and many students I've spoken to and taught are very concerned about it. It's new from 2026 onwards, at least, and it will only be in place for these 2 exam boards that are in bold here, which are AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE. Not Pearson edXL iGCSE, which is a different exam board. The dictation task will only come up in those 2 exam boards, in the listening exam or listening paper for those 2 exam boards, AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE. So if you're studying one of those 2 exam boards, then definitely listen out. Make sure you carry on watching because this should be very useful for you. If you're doing any of the other exam boards, then this is not going to be so relevant or helpful for you because the dictation task is only there for AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE. Now, first, we're going to look at what the dictation task actually is before I give you a few examples of questions from the dictation task. So the dictation task, as I said, is pretty new and is a task that only exists for certain examples, those exam boards being AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE. It takes place right towards the end of the listening exam for each of those 2 exam boards. Yeah, and it will be there for foundation and for higher tier for both AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE, though there are some differences depending on the exam board and depending on whether it's foundation or higher tier as well. If you're doing the dictation task, then you as a student must transcribe the sentence or the individual words of a sentence sometimes that you hear in German. So the audio would play a sentence spoken by a German native, and you would simply have to write down what you hear. you'd either have to write down the entire sentence most of the time, or for certain foundation tier questions, as we'll see in these examples, actually, you just have to fill in gaps to complete the sentence. So you might just have to fit in one or two words to complete the sentence. The number of sentences as mentioned, the exact requirements of the task vary a little bit, not massively, but they do vary slightly depending on your exam board, whether it's AQA or Pearson, Edexcel, GCSE, and the tier. So whether you're doing foundation tier or higher tier. And I will show, for the sake of completeness, I'll show examples from both foundation and higher tier and both exam boards as well. So here are some of my top tips for the dictation task. Of course, it is new, and that tends to be the main thing that gets people concerned. So it is worth mentioning again that there are practice materials out there if you want to practice for the dictation task. Yes, it is new. It has been introduced for the Modern Languages GCSE exams from 2026 onwards for these two exam boards. But both of these exam boards do have sample material available online on their websites that you can use to practice. And I'm sure that over time, more and more materials will emerge that you can use as practice as well. So try not to feel too overwhelmed by that. To practice for the dictation, the best thing is to practice listening to German, because that's what happens in the actual dictation task. It's particularly useful to hear German spoken by natives. Again, that's what you'd hear in the actual dictation task itself. And try and make it roughly the same speed as that of the sample dictation tasks, which you could access on the websites of these exam boards. That would be the best way to revise and to practice. Essentially, the idea is to train your ear to get used to hearing German as much as possible. The more you hear German, the more you will be able to identify where one word ends and the next word starts. You'll be able to identify more clearly what's being said and even how to spell the words and things like that. So that is the best way of practicing. And you could do so in more fun ways as well if you want to use things like German music, or German language audiobooks or podcasts, things like that. That can be useful practice for the dictation task potentially too. Essentially, when revising, you should practice transcribing and writing out the German that you hear, and you have to learn which symbols correspond to which sounds. That's known as sound symbol correspondence, which is essentially what they're trying to test with the dictation task. German is actually technically a phonetic language, which means it's spelt how it's pronounced, which does help because it means that once you know the sounds produced by certain letters or combinations of letters, those shouldn't really vary much. So you can use that fact to help you. Other languages are not phonetic, like French, for example, or English. So there is that slight advantage with German. Of course, with German, you've got those accents to watch out for as well. And they do change the sound made. If there's an umlaut on a vowel, it will sound different to how it would have sounded without the umlaut. So make sure to practice and get used to those as well. Don't overlook that either. Okay, so those are the key, pieces of advice for the dictation task to try and reduce that pressure of facing something new. And now I am going to give you some examples. So this first example comes from a Pearson Edexcel paper, the sample material provided actually, and this is for foundation tier. So I'll do this first, and then we'll go on to a second example, which is higher tier, and from the other exam board, AQA. You can take a bit of time to read through the instructions. You can see that they're all in English here, and they should be very clear. And we are just actually looking at question 1. So you can see that for question 1, you don't actually have to write out the whole sentence. They've already given you 2 words in the sentence, the first word and the third word. So all you'd have to do is fill in the second word correctly in German with the right spelling and so on, and the fourth word to complete the sentence. And here we are only going to do question number 1 for practice. Before moving on to the second example. I should also mention that for the dictation task, and this is different to the rest of the listening paper, you would hear everything exactly 3 times. yeah, as you'll hear when I play the audio as well. So make sure that you're aware of that. You would hear everything exactly 3 times. Yeah, whereas everything else in the listening paper you'd get to hear just twice. So we're going to go through, I'm going to play the audio, and you should hear them say sentence one out loud 3 times with gaps in between. And your job is just to try and transcribe what it is that they say or fill in the 2 missing words. Okay, let's have a go.
Ich möchte hier essen.
Okay, that was the first go.
Ich möchte hier essen.
Okay, and one more.
Ich möchte hier essen.
Okay, that's all. So yeah, you got to hear it 3 times. This is exactly how it would be in the exam. Bear in mind that this is also foundation tier, as mentioned. And for some foundation tier questions like this, you don't have to even transcribe the entire sentence. Foundation tier obviously is slower as well, and this is also the first question. Therefore, it's meant to be a bit easier. I will now show you the answer. Hopefully, this is what you got. This is the answer for that particular question. For number one, it was Ich möchte hier essen. I would like to eat here. Yeah, so those are the 2 words, möchte and essen, that you should have filled in the correct places. Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too difficult. Yeah, and this gives you yeah, an idea of what to expect in the dictation task. So now let's go on to the second example. Okay, so now let's move on to our second example. Now, this example here, the instructions are clearly written in English again. And I should point out that for AQA, as for Pearson edXL GCSE, in the dictation task, you'd hear everything 3 times. There is a slight difference here in that for AQA, the second time you hear the sentence being spoken, it is slowed down, which is only for AQA, I believe. Yeah, so that's a slight advantage for AQA. Yeah, you will hear it 3 times, first as a full sentence, the second time in short sections, and then the third time as a full sentence again. So here we are looking at sentence 3 only. So just sentence 3. And of course, you've got to transcribe the entire sentence. So it's not just about filling in 1 or 2 individual words. You have to write down the entire sentence. And of course, it's got to be correctly spelled as much as possible, and it should make sense in German too. So this is the second example, which is higher tier and from the sample material for AQA. So let me just play that now and try and write down the sentence that you hear in German. Okay, that was the third time. So as mentioned, you'd hear it 3 times. And for AQA, the second time you hear it, it will be slowed down and split into chunks. Okay, so hopefully you got something down for that. And now I will show you what the answer is for this second example. This is the correct answer. It was sentence 3 that we were looking at. Ich werde heute Abend Gitarre spielen, meaning I will play guitar this evening. And yeah, of course, this is the second example is somewhat harder than the first one, or quite a bit more difficult because yeah, the speed of the audio is slightly increased. Yeah, this is higher tier after all, rather than foundation tier, and the vocab perhaps is a little bit more difficult. This is a sentence that is in the future tense, ich werde, all of that contributes to making it harder. And of course, the fact that you have to write out the whole sentence as well, not just one or two words. Okay, now after those examples, I'm just going to take you through a quick quiz to test your understanding of the dictation task in German GCSE and iGCSE. So, question number 1, how could you practice for the dictation task? What are the best practice methods? Let me give you a few seconds to think. Okay, and let me show the answer. So you can easily practice, or essentially practice, by listening to as much German as you can, of the appropriate level, ideally, and of course, getting used to writing out what you hear. So that's mimicking what you have to do in the actual dictation task. That is, arguably the best way to practice. Number 2, this question's true or false. So those speaking the sentences in the dictation task will always be native speakers. Let me show the answer for this as well. So this is true. The sentences in the dictation task are always going to be spoken by native speakers. So you should practice by familiarizing yourself with German as it's spoken by natives. Okay, question number 3, true or false? The dictation task is new, and so no sample materials exist. I should quickly mention, actually, for number 2, even though there will be natives pronouncing everything in the dictation task, they will, of course, be speaking at a much reduced speed. So don't worry about having to practice by getting used to hearing natives speaking at full speed. That's not required. Okay, question 3 then is true or false? The dictation task is new, and so no sample materials exist. Is that one true or false? It is something that I did mention, and I will show the answer now. This one's actually false. So the dictation task is new, but there are sample materials published by both the exam boards, both AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE, which can be used for practice. And lastly, question number 4. Is the dictation task marked only based on the accuracy of your transcription? So is it just about getting exactly the right words down as much as you can with correct spelling as well? Okay, here comes the answer. It was perhaps the hardest question, I think, but there are marks actually available in the mark scheme for conveying the correct sense or the meaning of the audio that you've heard as well. Even if there are spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, or you do transcribe the wrong words, for instance, if the sentence that you end up with still conveys a similar meaning to what it is that the person in the audio said, then you can still get some credit for it. You could still get some marks. So even if it feels very difficult and you don't think you understood anything in the audio, just have a go, because you might be able to grab a few marks in any case. Okay, if you've got questions on any of that, or if you'd like to know more about personalized help and lessons, which I do provide too, you can get in touch with me by email, through Facebook or Instagram. These are my contact details, and I post every day, more or less, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, sharing my love of languages with the world, helping people to learn more languages, and giving them the techniques to allow them to do that. I do post about GCSE and iGCSE language exams there too, including very useful tips, how to revise, how to come up with a revision plan, and more. So do follow me on each of those platforms. I have many resources, particularly free resources, available too for GCSE and iGCSE languages. These are just 2 examples here, but I have them for German and for other languages as well. And I do one-to-one classes, group classes, courses, and plenty more. So don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to know more about any of this.